Hello and very warm welcome at Amish Shackle 5858. I am Amish Shackle. Foreign news have been reported by American, European, Asian, African, Australian news channels and the news agencies. So please let's go to the headlines.
Breaking news tonight, the new video of the deadly Minneapolis shooting filmed by the ICE officer who opened fire. The video revealing new details and raising new questions. The ICE officer's cell phone capturing the key moments with Renee Good before she was killed. The new vantage point sparking divided reactions. We'll play out the entire video for you and break it down moment by moment, what it potentially reveals. Protests in the streets of Portland after another shooting by federal agents. 2 people wounded. What we're learning about their possible gang ties. Deadly crackdown in Iran after days of protest. The country shut off from the world. Iran's supreme leader vowing to not back down. U.S. forces seize yet another Venezuela oil tanker at sea as top oil execs meet with President Trump, what they're demanding. The so-called super flu surging, hospitalizations and deaths rising, these parents in agony as their 12-year-old fights for his life. The deadly shark attack in Paradise, an American killed. We hear from the man who ran into the water to try to save her. New details after an Ohio couple was murdered in their home. What the police chief just revealed about the early hours of the investigation. Terrifying video as an explosive is launched near a lawmaker in Honduras. How she survived.
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Yamas.
And good evening. Tonight we have the clearest video yet of the deadly encounter between an ICE officer and a woman blocking the officer's path in Minneapolis. We're going to play the whole video for you tonight in a moment and break it down frame by frame. The video providing more evidence but little consensus in a case that ignited protests in Minneapolis and across the country. And there was outrage in the streets of Portland, Oregon last night after another shooting involving federal agents. Our reporter is there tonight. But we want to start with the new video from Minneapolis. In previous clips, we had seen the officer open fire, filming the vehicle with his cell phone. Tonight, we have that video, and we'll play it for you in full. You will see his encounter with Renee Good, the woman in the car who was killed, and with her wife, who engages with him outside the vehicle.
Every morning, just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen, former. You want to come at us? You want to come at us? I said go get yourself some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Out the car. Get out of the car. Get out of the car.
That new video is sparking sharp reactions tonight.
Organizations, revolutionary organizations that seek to take advantage when those people are harmed or killed. And that's what we're seeing today with groups mobilizing across the country.
The concern being well-funded groups pouring gasoline on hot-button issues to tear us apart.
All right, Mike Emanuel. Thank you, Mike. Sandra, go ahead.
Okay, let's bring in Republican Louisiana Senator John Kennedy, a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee. He joins us now. He's also the author of How to Test Negative for Stupid and Why Washington Never Will. Senator, always great to have you on the program. Welcome to you. All right, so how do you respond to these calls from some on the left who defund ICE in the wake of this Minnesota shooting?
Mayor Donnie has already declared that the officer, the cop, is guilty of murder. And I know the mayor asked him, but he wasn't there. We don't need people like Mayor Mondani investigating this. We need people who are fair and who are impartial and who don't automatically believe that cops are a bigger problem than criminals. The police officer will be interviewed under oath. His record will be looked at. We already know. Apparently, she is part of a school in an organized effort to be trained as an ice watcher or an ice warrior. They're trained to disrupt ice raids. There's reporting from credible sources that she had been doing that all day. Again, that'll all come out one way or the other. This much I do know. Two things. Look, these cops are arresting people, many of whom are gang members who are in our country illegally, and they're already scared. This is a tinderbox, and so if you put yourself in the middle of that tinderbox and start giving off spark, bad are going to happen. Now, I'm not saying that's what happened here. I just want the facts, ma'am. Yeah. But it's been my experience in life that not always, but usually, cops will leave you alone unless you do illegal stuff. But we're going to find out.
Yeah, we will. And obviously, this video is another piece of this investigation, a video that we've all had a chance to see now. Senator, a huge conversation is about to be had at the White House right now, and that could significantly involve and affect your state after the capture of Maduro from Venezuela. President Trump is looking at opportunities with oil in Louisiana. It's an oil-rich country. He's meeting with oil executives at the White House. He's going to have a big discussion with them about opportunities there. What would you like to see happen coming from a very energy important state like Louisiana?
Well, here's what I think has happened. Maduro is gone. Good riddance. The country, our country, has control of Venezuela economically. They get their money from selling oil, and we've got control of the oil, the shipping. So we've got leverage. Secretary Rubio told us in a classified setting, this isn't classified, he said it to the public, that the first stability, and I think that's where we are, is stability. He said the next step, these are my words, not his, it is to try to give the people of Venezuela the right to self-determination. And I hope that's the case. That was important. You know, what's more important? Values. And I want Venezuela to be a friend of America, but I also want Venezuela to have the right to self-determination. And I believe that's what the president's going to do. I believe that's what Secretary Rubio's going to do. We can get a better price for the oil than Venezuela can, so in that respect we can help. But that oil doesn't belong to us. That's an asset that belongs to the people of Venezuela. I will say that our refineries in Louisiana, pretty damn good. We can refine the sour.
Intensifying unrest in Iran this Friday night. What the regime is now doing to suppress protesters, the pleas for the U.S. president to intervene, and what Iranian Canadians are hoping will happen. ICE under fire for 2 shootings. The skepticism over what the White House is claiming.
This was a crime in broad daylight, and the attempt to cover it up is another.
And the newly released video of the deadly confrontation in Minneapolis. Canada's flu fight, the good news from public health authorities. Plus, Goal Squad.
I am filled with nothing but excitement and confidence.
Who scored a role on Canada's Olympic women's hockey team.
Global National reporting tonight.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. More anti-government protests are unfolding in Iran tonight as the Islamic Republic struggles to contain weeks of widespread unrest. Clashes between demonstrators and authorities have left dozens dead, including members of the security forces, according to Iranian officials. Authorities have also cut off internet and phone access in parts of the country. And as the regime vows to punish protesters without any leniency, U.S. President Donald Trump is once again threatening to intervene. Redmond Shannon has our top story tonight.
Destroying a police kiosk in a police state. A rising anger over 2 weeks in Iran that has ignited. Across every province in the country, the crowds grow. Men and women in over 100 cities demanding change, even burning statues of lauded military figures. Dozens have been killed in the first 12 days, including some security forces, according to authorities. Protests that began over financial hardship have now become about regime change, some even chanting death to the dictator, referring to the Islamic Republic's supreme leader. Addressing supporters Friday, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei called demonstrators vandals who are destroying their country to please the US president.
I've made the statement very strongly that if they start killing people like they have in the past, we will get involved. We'll be hitting them very hard where it hurts.
Trump, however, brushed off a suggestion he could meet with the man many Iranians hope could lead the country. Reza Pahlavi, the exiled son of the Shah deposed in 1979, asked for Trump's support Friday, rallying Iranians to continue marching despite threats from the judiciary of a harsh crackdown that came alongside an internet and phone blackout Friday.
Tonight is very important, and again, it's really a rapidly developing situation.
This Iranian analyst says while many Iranians feel they have little to lose, others will be wary.
People may coalesce around the idea of an end to the Islamic Republic, but they will need to see an alternative. And if that alternative isn't there, it might cause some people to think twice.
What happens in the coming days may prove crucial in deciding Iran's future. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
Iranians here in Canada are now even more worried about what's unfolding in their home country as they're unable to reach their loved ones because of the communications blackout. But that hasn't stopped them from rallying in solidarity with protesters there as the movement.
This is Sky News, the headlines.
I'm not mad, boy. Show your face. I'm not mad at us.
New footage emerges of the second or 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good was killed in Minneapolis, apparently filmed by the ICE officer who shot her. In Iran, a national rebellion. Millions take part in protests with the country's supreme leader blaming Donald Trump. The US president says the leader of the Venezuelan opposition will visit the White House next week. Homes severely damaged, trees uprooted and thousands still without power after Storm Goretti swept through parts of the UK.
All 3 cars big damage.
Disruption on the trains and major roads and more weather warnings, snow and ice across the country. With new footage, which has been shared by the US Vice President J.D. Vance on social media. Renee Nicole Good and her wife appearing to argue with ICE officers seconds before gunshots are heard. Renee's wife paid tribute to her and said those responsible for her getting fear and anger in their hearts. Sky's US correspondent Martha Kellner sent this report from Minneapolis, and the warning begins with images you may find distressing.
The new video begins seconds before the fatal shooting of Renee Nicole Good, apparently filmed by the immigration officer who killed her.
That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you.
I'm not mad that you would tell the officer.
Hey, we don't change our plates every morning.
A woman believed to be her wife is also filming. In another angle, you can see the officer holding a phone.
You want to come at us? You want to come at us? I say go get yourself some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Another officer tells Good to get out of the car. She turns the steering wheel right. The officer appears to swear at Good after shooting her. These US media reports say his name is Jonathan Ross, who was dragged by a car and injured during an arrest attempt last year. Protests continue across Minneapolis. A vocal minority supporting Donald Trump's anti-migrant policy. Vice President J.D. Vance previously promised absolute immunity to the officer who shot Good. He reposted the new video on X, writing, "Watch this, as hard as it is. The reality is his life was endangered and he fired in self-defense." But the mayor of Minneapolis vehemently disagrees. Donald Trump has said that it's clear that Renee Nicole Good was not just trying to run this officer over, that she actually ran him over. J.D. Vance has promised this officer absolute immunity in this case. Is there any hope of an independent investigation while they're in charge?
The way you put it, it's pretty grim. What you just said, and I think, to repeat for everybody, Donald Trump said that Renee ran the ICE agent over. Don't take my word for it. Don't take their word for it. Watch the video from every single angle. I mean, the ICE agent walked away with a hip injury that he might as well have gotten from closing a refrigerator door with his hips. He was not injured. I've seen worse injuries from doing.
Today, Victoria declares a state of disaster for 18 local government areas as dozens of bushfires burn across the state.
This is a crucial time for Victorians, for them to listen to the advice of emergency services and being ready to enact emergency plans.
The Longwood fire burns through more than 130 hectares of land, threatening several townships.
Our farm's been burnt through, but we've managed to, the horses there have survived.
High fire danger in New South Wales with a heat wave set to peak today.
It will be an incredibly challenging day for the health system as well as the RFS and fire and rescue.
A tropical low expected to drench northeast Queensland, making landfall as a Category 1 cyclone. The owner of a Swiss ski bar held in custody over the deadly New Year's Eve fire. Good morning. It is Saturday, the 10th of January. I'm Fawzia Ibrahim.
And I'm Joanna Nicholson. You're watching a special edition of Weekend Breakfast as we bring you the very latest on the extreme weather patterns across the country. And this hour will be starting in Victoria, where a state of disaster has been declared in that state as firefighters continue to battle multiple out-of-control emergency-level blazes. 3 people remain unaccounted for, and dozens of properties are feared to have been lost after soaring temperatures brought the most catastrophic bushfire conditions since the Black Summer fires. There are now 2 major areas of concern, with emergency warnings issued for central Victoria and Walwa in the northeast, that's at the New South Wales border. Now, the Longwood fire, that's the biggest blaze in the state, has burnt through more than 130,000 hectares and is threatening several townships as it spreads through central Victoria.
There is just this nervousness around what our future looks like, and we will certainly need a great deal of help, but right now we need the resources on the ground. We have Euroa Township, which is on the periphery and has had evacuation orders yesterday afternoon that we believe we're running out of fuel, water. Tankers are struggling to get some water access. We've just gone through drought for the last 12 months. We've got Longwood that is cut off from phone reception, power, water. There is no water. These are townships that have gone through more than 40-degree heat and they've got nothing. It is crisis, absolutely.
And Victoria's Premier has declared a state of disaster covering 18 local government areas, giving authorities additional powers to respond to the disaster and evacuate affected residents. The Prime Minister has been briefed on the situation this morning and is urging people to be prepared.
This is a crucial time for Victorians, for them to listen to the advice of emergency services and being ready to enact emergency plans. And of course, the Victorian government, in triggering that state of disaster, gives them powers to take action to make sure that more people aren't put into dangerous situations, whether they be members of the population or indeed those volunteers and emergency service workers who also want to minimise the risk to them.
Now, this is, as you can understand, an unfolding situation. Of course, we will have ongoing coverage of the bushfires throughout the morning here on the news channel. You can also get the latest on your ABC local radio station as well, and the ABC Listen app, I beg your pardon. Well, let's now go to our reporter Stephanie Ferrier, who's at a relief centre in Seymour. This is near the biggest blaze that we're keeping our eye on. That's the Longwood blaze. Steph, lots of people there trying to seek shelter where you are. What have they said to you?
Yes, we've been hearing a lot from people here many of whom are now starting to drive out. They're hoping that the conditions have cleared enough for them to be able to go back and assess the damage. However, we are being told by our reporters and producers on the ground, for example, trying to get into Yea, that all of the roads are cut off to get into there because of trees that are down, power lines as well. There are excavators that are...
This is Asia Now.
It's 9 a.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 6:30 in New Delhi, and 8 o'clock in Jakarta. Good morning. I'm Rani Samtani. At this hour, U.S. President Donald Trump pushes American oil executives to invest billions in Venezuela. Washington seized a fifth tanker in the Caribbean and seeks to control Venezuela's crude exports. Iran blames the U.S. for widespread anti-government protests in the country. A near-total internet blackout is in place as demonstrations enter a 13th day. And Russia fires a hypersonic missile at Ukraine in a massive overnight attack. The strike near the border with NATO member Poland comes just hours after Moscow rejected a peacekeeping plan from the U.S. and Europe. U.S. President Donald Trump sat down with more than a dozen oil executives at the White House, pushing for them to invest $100 billion to rebuild Venezuela's oil industry. But he was met with a cautious response.
So we're going to tell these great rapidly rebuild Venezuela's dilapidated oil industry and bring millions of barrels of oil production to benefit the United States, the people of Venezuela, and the entire world. And if we didn't do this, China would have been there and Russia would have been there. Maybe they both would have been there together, but they're not going to be there now. One thing I will tell them, and I will tell you, that we are open for business.
Chevron, the only American oil major still operating in Venezuela, said it is ready to double the crude it's producing with Venezuela's state-owned oil firm immediately. Vice Chairman Mark Nelson added he sees a pathway to grow its production by 50% within 18 to 24 months. But the investigate for reform and investment productions for oil companies. Washington has assured it would work with the Venezuelan government to provide firms with total security on the ground. Mr. Trump said Venezuela's interim president, Rodriguez, appears to be meeting Venezuelan representatives soon. The administration has continued to pile pressure on Caracas, seizing a fifth oil tanker in the Caribbean to control Venezuela's oil exports. Back in Venezuela, interim President Rodriguez said her government will tackle what she called U.S. aggression with diplomacy as she continued to denounce the capture of her predecessor, Nicolas Maduro. Iran has sent a letter to the United Nations Security Council accusing the U.S. of destabilizing practices. The letter comes after the country's supreme leader said President Donald Trump had hands stained with blood after he pledged to support protesters turning out in Iran's streets. Iranian letter stated that the U.S. was undermining the UN Charter and violating fundamental principles of international law. Fresh anti-government protests are reported to have broken out in Tehran, signaling an upcoming crackdown. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said the protesters were ruining their own streets to please the U.S. president. Reports say more than 60 people have been killed in the protests that began late in December. The unrest was triggered by the ailing economy, but has morphed into the most significant challenge to the government in years. The U.S. president has warned that the U.S. was locked and ready to go if Iran cracked down on the unrest.
So Iran's in big trouble. It looks to me that the people are taking over certain cities that nobody thought were really possible just a few weeks ago. We're watching the situation very carefully. I've made the statement very strongly that if they start killing people like they have in the past, we will get involved. We'll be hitting them very hard where it hurts. And that doesn't mean boots on the ground, but it means hitting them very, very hard where it hurts.
Meanwhile, Iranians in Europe have risen to demonstrate in solidarity. This as European leaders urged Iran's government to allow its citizens to demonstrate without reprisal. Iran has largely been cut off from the outside world after authorities imposed an internet blackout to curb the unrest.
We are also concerned by reports of nationwide internet and communications shutdowns. Such actions undermine the freedom of expression and access to information, as well as impacting on the work of those documenting human rights violations and access to essential or emergency services.
Sydney is bracing for what could be its hottest day of the season. Temperatures are expected to hit 43 degrees Celsius.
Africa News. The news.
Angry and overcome by pain, 22 coffins were paraded by the M23 rebels before a crowd and the families of the victims in Goma, capital of North Kivu province, on Thursday. The M23 has accused the Congolese army of responsibility for the drone strike that it says targeted civilians in Masisi. We lost comrades, friends, loved ones. My little sister died too. She had gone to Masisi to work, and then she died there. The Congolese government has not commented on the strike, which M23 says targeted a crowd of civilians celebrating the new year. Despite the signing of the Washington Agreement and the continuation of the Doha process, fighting continues on several fronts in eastern DRC, continuing to claim numerous civilian and military casualties. We were celebrating New Year's Eve when a bomb fell on the market while we were partying. This isn't the first time this drone has arrived in Masisi. More than 100 armed groups are vying for a foothold in mineral-rich eastern Congo near the border with Rwanda, most prominently M23. The conflict has created one of the world's most significant humanitarian crises, with more than 7 million people displaced. Senegalese Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko said his government wouldn't seek a deal to restructure its debt despite facing repayment difficulties. The International Monetary Fund has said the West African country's debt reached 132% of GDP at the end of 2024. The fund has since paused the $1.8 billion lending program, leaving Dakar struggling to meet its financing needs. Speaking at a joint press conference with Mauritania's Prime Minister on Thursday, Sonko said there was a way out of the crisis without resorting to debt restructuring. He expressed confidence that Senegal's debt was at sustainable levels. Sonko's government has accused the administration of former President Macky Sall of hiding the extent and scale of the country's debt. The country owes its debt to a diverse mix of creditors, including commercial lenders.
Somalia's government has rejected allegations by the United States that authorities in Mogadishu destroyed an American-funded World Food Program warehouse and seized food aid meant for vulnerable civilians. The dispute prompted the U.S. State Department to suspend all assistance to Somalia's federal government, citing what it called a zero-tolerance policy for the waste or diversion of life-saving aid.
Deeply concerning, especially as Somalia now faces a severe drought. Any action that disrupts or undermines humanitarian infrastructure or raises doubt about the safety of the aid which vulnerable life is at risk, and it must be taken seriously. Clarification that I saw from the government is not enough. It doesn't substitute for accountability, regardless of the intent. Damaging or repurposing humanitarian facilities during the crisis is irresponsible, requires independent and responsible.
Somalia remains heavily dependent on international aid, with the U.S. providing $770 million in assistance last year, though only a small share went directly to the government.
A stark warning for Nigeria. Speaking in an interview with the New York Times, US President Donald Trump stated that there could be more strikes by the US in Nigeria if Christians are killed in the African country, even as Nigeria has rejected that Christians there face persecution. It comes after the US's Christmas Day military strike on Nigeria, which the White House said was against Daesh militants in the northwest.
Thank you for watching Ahmed Shakil 5858. I am Ahmed Shakil. I hope you will visit again. Have a good life. Bye-bye.